Wolozin. I'm the director of the MIT Open Documentary Lab, and I'm here to talk to you about our latest report that's about to come out, which looks at the intersection of interactive documentary and digital journalism. Now, mobile is, of course, part of that story and why this is happening, but it's also a larger look at sort of the transformation within digital journalism. We're looking at legacy media institutions and how they're making the transition using interactive documentary and why. We look at The Guardian to start, and you probably are very familiar with that story, but they were, their print newspaper had a readership of 190,000. They're now the second largest English-speaking newspaper, and just beat out the New York Times. And it's really because they made this digital shift in a really smart way. And as Emily Bell says when she first came on, they're doing stories of the web, not just on the web. And we went in there and we saw one interesting transformation that Erin Pilhofer, who's the head of digital there, instituted, what they call a new visuals team. And so they created teams that were specifically available to do these sort of longer form interactive documentaries while also still being able to cover the daily work that they do. So that is a challenge, is sort of how do you implement these longer pieces within the daily needs. And what he did was he created a whole department that had designers and technologists and journalists, reporters rather, and photographers and videographers that were available and able to do these stories while also going back to the traditional desks when they needed to. So it became a more fluid experience. The other interesting thing is that these big documentary projects that they're doing, and we started to see them at festivals, and that's when we became interested. These wonderful projects like Firestorm and NSA Files Decoded that really are immersive and interactive and visually very compelling. And the question became, why do them? And they did them also not only because of the quality journalism that they create and that they are, but also because they become places of experimentation. You know, in this time of change, innovation is key. And these larger documentary projects became places where they could test and they could see what worked and what didn't. And then what did work, they could templatize and create tools out of these larger experiments. So using them is really a place to experiment and create new processes and new teams and new tools for your newsroom became a really important part of the way they innovate and transition to the digital. Collaboration was something that we found that was really key to all these organizations. And when we talk about collaboration, it's really across borders. So it's with different teams in the newsroom. So one of the key parts of this story is that you collaborate from the beginning. So rather than just having a print reporter who writes and then the photographer puts in some photography and the graphics puts in some graphics, they all get together from the beginning and think about the story and where it needs to be visual and where it needs to have graphics, and so that they can really create a seamless experience between text and graphics and photos and all the visuals. Snowfall is a very well-known project that really was one of the early experimenters of this new kind of process of working with interdepartmental teams from the beginning. They also collaborate with other institutions. We're seeing a lot of that as a mode of survival. For instance, we looked at Frontline, and Frontline has partnerships with many places, from ProPublica and Center for Investigative Reporting and the New York Times. So they're moving across different types of media and their print and their long form, and they're just, again, working together to create these new forms that are interactive documentaries that are really come from many different disciplines and many different media, and require very different skills than traditional reporting or traditional documentary. But they seem to bring a lot of benefits to the organizations. A, they're visual, and B, they're interactive, which we all know is something that newspapers and media organizations have to acknowledge and create if they're going to especially appeal to the millennial. Rainey Aronson, who is the executive producer of Frontline, talks very eloquently about how she had her aha moment when she saw her daughter, who was 3 years old, who was used to an iPad, go try to use the television, and she was trying to touch it, and she was getting mad that she couldn't manipulate it and change it herself, and she really said, this is the future. We need to learn how to tell stories for this generation using this kind of media. Some other takeaways that we took from this report that I'm just going to go through is one, as I said, collaboration is key. Starting with the user, really thinking about the user and the user experience and user behavior, and understanding that when you create a story or let it determine what story, so that you're really in dialogue with users from the beginning. That also seems to be key. As I said, story determines form, not just to do interactive and participatory projects just to do them, but when the story really merits it. With Snowfall, they had 19,000 words. They needed some visual way to talk about that. Another one is thinking about them as shaping the conversation rather than just reporting facts. So we have a game, Fort McMoney, that we look at, and it's creating a place for people to have dialogue. And then again, really thinking about interactive documentary and all this kind of new storytelling as a place of experimentation. So thinking about the long-term impact. Maybe it won't immediately give you the bottom line, but it will give you a place to change your organization. And also the final one I just want to talk about is using archives for legacy organizations, and really seeing how you can creatively take advantage of what you already have and create stories with that. So those are the key takeaways, and I think important for mobile and for all of digital journalism, and that's what I wanted to say. Thank you. Bye.